So heading into 2017, there was plenty of buzz about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team had made progress in the first 2 years with Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston had made some progress his first 2 seasons. They were in the mix late in 2016 for the playoff race. They ultimately just missed out. Then when you factor in the signings of Deshaun Jackson in free agency, the drafting of O.J. Howard at pick 19 in round 1, there's a lot of playoff buzz, and I unfortunately bought into it as well for 2017. You're thinking, Mike Evans, now you've got the vertical threat opposite him and Deshaun Jackson. You've got Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard. You've got 2 tight ends. If Jameis can stay healthy and if they can run the ball at all, my goodness, this offense is going to be scary. And then the season happened. The Hurricane wiped out week 1, so they lost their bye during the season. They had to play 16 straight games. But more so, the reality came back to roost, and the Buccaneers came crashing back down to earth. They finished last in the NFC South at 5-11, with the surprising thing being is in order to win that 5th game, they had to beat a damn Saints team in the last week of the season. What went wrong for this team? Well, Jameis wasn't healthy the entire year. He had a shoulder injury during the middle of the year, missed a few games, and after that just never really felt like he was right as rain. But more importantly, this team could not run the football at all. They were 27th in the league in rushing yards per game, and then defensively, they really couldn't stop anybody. They were 23rd in the league in rushing yards allowed per game, 32nd in passing yards allowed per game, and in total yards allowed per game. The fact is, they were one-dimensional offensively, and that limited their options. They became predictable and not as explosive as they could have been because they couldn't run the football. And then that put huge pressure on the defense, who couldn't stop anybody. Hence, you get a situation where you have 6 losses by 7 points or less. The only divisional game you happen to win is the one the last week of the season. And yeah, you could say Jameis being hurt in the middle of the year didn't help, but this team was going nowhere fast anyways. And frankly, you saw a stunning lack of progression out of him overall in year number 3. And with all the John Gruden buzz, to me, this should be the condemnation of this organization, is that John Gruden clearly was interested in coming back into coaching. He had ties and roots to Tampa. He's the guy that led them to their Super Bowl title in the 2002 season. And the Buccaneers clearly had interest. The rumors and reports got out there for a reason because the organization let them get out there. They got out there. And the bottom line is John Gruden wanted to go coach under Mark Davis instead for a team that's getting ready to move to Las Vegas. So the Buccaneers were stuck keeping Dirk Cutter for 2018. And here's what I want to point out. Lovie Smith got 2 years. He took over a terrible team, did his job in 2014, helped them get the number 1 overall pick so they could get Jameis Winston. Then in 2015, they win 6 games, and they said there was not enough growth or progression, so he's got to be fired. And yes, the team was all right in Dirk Cutter's first year in 2016, but they took a significant step back. How the hell does Dirk Cutter still have a job? How did Lovie Smith get fired for an improvement of 4 wins with a bad team and a rookie quarterback? But Dirk Cutter, with this so-called alleged high-powered, explosive offense full of talent all over the damn place, he regresses this year. His team wins 5 games, 4 fewer than the year before, and he keeps his damn job. Hashtag coach is so white. Hashtag white is right. Hashtag that's the NFL, bitches. I guess. So anyways, the hot seat is obviously going to get very warm for Dirk Cutter in 2018 because based off of what you saw in 2017, you have limited reason for optimism going into this upcoming season. This will be an important offseason for the Buccaneers, which will be a familiar refrain for me, especially for these non-playoff teams, but I think it really is for them. They've got about $65 million in cap space. They have some notable players on defense. A defense, mind you, that wasn't very good anyways, that they'll have to make decisions on. Brent Grimes, TJ Ward, Clinton McDonald. Are you going to re-sign those guys? Are you going to look at them and say, maybe some of them were good for us, but we still were bad anyways? Why would we invest a bunch of money in them, especially when they're on probably all 3 of them close to the downside of their careers? I think for the Buccaneers, while they need to spend some money in free agency, specifically looking at adding a pass rusher, adding some depth and talent in that secondary, they've got some decisions to make in terms of their roster, in terms of long term. And is this the offseason that they're going to focus on some of the younger talent, some of the core nucleus players, and focus on taking that cap space and locking them up long term? You would have to think at this point, priority number one of the entire offseason is to get a long-term deal done with Mike Evans. Last I checked, he's not locked up long-term. He's entering the last year of his rookie contract. I could be mistaken, but I thought that was still the case. If he's not locked up yet, that's priority number one. Get a big contract done for Mike Evans. If there has been one and I just missed it, then I apologize. Then you've got to make a decision on Jameis Winston. You're 3 years in. You're getting ready to go into his 4th year, potentially thinking about picking up his 5th year option. So maybe you have him for another 2 years at a decent cap number. Do you want to keep him at that decent cap number and let him prove that he can be that guy? Because I still don't feel like he truly has proven to be that guy. Or do you go ahead and say, screw it, we're going to lock him up long term because we're afraid of what the quarterback market is going to look like in another year or two? Those are valid questions to ask, and it's a big decision this organization is going to make. Do they try to lock him up now, or do they wait another year? And at this point in time, I'd rather pick up that 5th year option and wait another year and force Jameis to prove it to me that he deserves to be paid like a franchise guy. Then you've got Donovan Smith, Ali Marpet, Quan Alexander. These are all guys that you have to think about locking up long term before they hit free agency in another year or so. So while the Buccaneers need to spend some in free agency to get better and plug some holes, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they really, really, truly need to figure out what they're going to do and start locking up some of these guys that they've drafted in previous years. So what does that mean for the NFL draft? When you look at this team, they've got picks in each of the first 6 rounds. They're picking 7th overall in round number 1. Clearly, obviously, the needs are on the defensive side of the ball. Clearly. Because you've got Gerald McCoy on that defensive line. Clinton McDonald is a free agent. But what else do you really have, especially in terms of guys that consistently generate some type of pass rush that other teams are going to have to worry about? You know, one of the most important things a team can have to winning games and winning important games, especially in the 4th quarter of the National Football League, is a running game that is consistent, that can get some tough first downs, and a 4th quarter pass rush. The Bucs have neither one of those. And as a result, that's why they finished 5-11. It's that simple. So, clearly to me, they need help with the defensive end position. Some people maybe are still giggly tits about Noah Spence. He was okay as a rookie, and he was injured and missed a good portion of the season this year. It wasn't all that incredibly productive. But either way, there's nothing illegal about having more than one pass rush guy, and that's part of the problem, is they really only have one guy on the edge that could generate any type of real rush whatsoever. They need help. They need a right defensive end. They need a left defensive end. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in an ideal world, Bradley Chubb would be there at pick number 7. If he is, you jump up to the podium, you run up to the podium, you cry while you hand in that card saying, oh my God, we got a multi-time Pro Bowler at pick number 7. They also could use help in the secondary, particularly at the safety position. I feel like they still use some corner depth. But bottom line is, Chris Conte sees significant playing time for the Buccaneers. Chris Conte. As a result, that lets you know they need help in the secondary at the safety position, period. But I will point out is that at some point in time in this draft, maybe they're going to get rid of Doug Martin, but he was a nothing this year. They really have nothing at that position that you could count on. This team needs to invest a pick, a premium pick. And by premium pick, I mean day 1 or day 2. Most notably day 2. They need to get a running back. They need to get a 3-down difference maker. And there are guys like that available in this draft that will be available in round number 2. So to me, when I look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading into the 2018 draft, after maybe locking up a couple of guys long-term, bringing in a guy or two to help, if I look at the first 3 rounds of this draft, they need to come out of this draft with Bradley Chubb no matter what, or close to no matter what, a game-changing running back, and somebody in the secondary or another pass rusher. Ideally, this team would get 2 pass rushers, a safety, and a feature back out of this draft. Guys that can come in and contribute right away, because if they do, we might have a different tone about this Buccaneers team for 2018. If not, Dirk Cutter is going to get fired, perhaps before the end of the season, and we're going to wonder if Jameis Winston's about to be his way out of Tampa Bay.